Hey Hearties, welcome to another Heart to Hearties. We're super excited. We're all fresh off of that season premiere that feels like we waited forever for. Yay, it's finally here. So we're super excited to chat with the cast and crew of When Calls the Heart throughout the season, if you're following along. I'm Jeanette Stevens. I'm an admin from Michigan, and I'm joined today by a couple fellow admins as well.
I'm Christy from Michigan.
I'm Delcy from Puerto Rico.
And today we're welcoming, you guys know this guy, come on now. He's been around since the beginning. I think you're the writer with the longest tenure on the show. We're here with Derek Thompson today. Welcome, Derek. Yay.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's always good to chat with you. It's good to be back.
It's always great to sit down with the writers. And before we dive in today, we do need to mention that we're going to dive into the first episode, and it was written by our brand new showrunner, Lindsay Sturman. And Lindsay couldn't be with us today. She's, as you all know, we're all hanging in there during the WGA strike that's going on. So we're super excited to have Derek here to represent today. So, but we do miss Lindsay, and some of us got to meet her last year at Hope Valley Days. So it's good to have the Canadian writers here.
Yeah, Lindsay's heartbroken that she can't do these right now during the strike, but admirably they're all in solidarity, kind of pens down and not doing promo and things like that. And the reason some of us are still working is we're Canadians, and we belong to a different guild than they do, but we fully support what they're doing. And Lindsay really looks forward to connecting with you all once the strike resolves itself. In the meantime, the remaining writers, myself, Beth Stewart, Ali Devereaux, we're really excited to try to fill in for Lindsay while we can, and keep chatting with you and keep chatting about the show, because I think that's what everyone wants.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so appreciative to have the Canadian writers with us. And, we're hoping for a fair resolution and swift resolution for everybody involved with the strikes. So we look forward to hopefully seeing Lindsay in the future. But in the meantime, it's super fun that we get to kind of get to know the Canadian writers a little better and spend a little more time with you this season. So
yeah, we're excited.
So Hearties have a ton of questions for you. So I hope you're ready. We got to kick it off with this first episode. It was right out the gate. We had Seize the Day. Carpe diem, seize the day. Can you talk a little bit about that theme, how you sort of landed on that theme, and is it something that we'll see throughout the season, or was it more of kind of a season premiere kickoff for us?
It's something that Lindsay brought into the room when we first started kicking ideas around for season 10, and it really sort of held through all the episodes. We felt like after season 9, there was sort of a lot of darker influences in town, and the town was growing, and we felt like we wanted to sort of bring it back to Hope Valley Classic, and so we came up with the idea that through some tough times, some of the big businesses went away and whatever, and the reason is because Hope Valley always finds a way to come together and make it work and seize the day, and so that seemed to fit. And then of course a bunch of the characters are going through individual struggles that would require that sort of outlook. Bill, first and foremost, with health problems, which is why I think the end of the episode was so fitting. And the discovery of the hot springs was just something new and natural, and it was just a nice kind of reset, I guess, for the town. And so I think that, because that's what I like about the show the most, is when people come together and kind of get through problems together. That's really, to me, the core of the show, and I think this helped us do that. So that was the origin of it, and I think it follows through the rest of the episodes.
Oh, it does. Oh, good. Yeah, I don't think there was a more seize the day moment than Jack Wagner falling backwards into the brand new hot spring.
He loved it. He loved
it was
old-fashioned underwear and everything. He loved it.
Well, and it felt sort of symbolic for the Hearties, you know, we're seasoned and we're jumping into the hot spring, ready for a new season. So
There you go. Everyone's sneezing today.
It feels like you're almost seizing on wish fulfillment this season as well. We have the new baby for Rosie and Lee, of course, and we have the new Mountie Dog, Scout, which my girls always loved Rip, so that's a fun addition. Will Scout play a big role this season?
Scout, I mean, we wanted to bring in sort of a sidekick for Nathan. And yes, it kind of, it's a nod back to Rip, who we all miss. And you know, I had a chance to work on set with Rip a little bit, and so he'll never be replaced. He was one of a kind for sure. But
Right.
we liked the idea of the Mountie that had this sidekick and a little comic relief at times, and sometimes someone to talk to. And we found Rip to be useful in that, or sorry, we found Scout to be useful in that. Rip was too. And that Nathan can say things to him that he couldn't say to anybody else because he's a dog. And so it's been helpful, just sort of like he does with his horse. So that's been helpful, and everyone loves dogs, and he's cute as they come. So yeah, he'll be around for the whole season, and we'll have lots of fun, and we'll cause Nathan some trouble at times, but also the opposite. So that's good.
Looking forward to that.
yeah, Hearties are all in on the dog, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The scroungier, the better, you know.
Oh, yeah.
There you
He's
go.
got that
You're the
Benji look. He's great. Yeah.
We have a question from Kaylee Smith from Tennessee. She remarked that last night the interactions between Bill and Henry really made her heart swell. Feels like a new beginning for them. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Carpe Diem theme for the season. They're both going through something that's tough. You know, Henry's gonna face charges and things like that, and he's also going through some emotional, personal things, a transformation, if you will. And then Bill's dealing with his health issues and mortality and all that stuff. So I think they're an interesting pair this season, and I think they're going to have a few more scenes like that. I mean, personally, their scenes are amongst my favorite to write, because it's sort of the less is more theory. They don't have to say too much to convey a lot. And so I love those scenes together. And I think we'll get a few more of those this season and moving forward. And I think they'll probably get through some hard things together. So it's, yeah, they're great.
When I tweeted last night, I said, and I'm curious what your take on it is, I mentioned that, dare I say, I said I was really intrigued by the storyline. And I said, dare I say that scene felt like there was an actual friendship? Like I used the word friendship. Like, would you classify them as being at the friendship level, or it's so cool to see the evolution of their relationship?
I think there's an understated friendship between them. I think a bond through their history. They've been through a lot. I think you know, Bill being Mountie Judge, I think he respects the transformation of Gowan over the years. He's seen him at his worst and he's seen him at his best. And I think it really plays into this show and this town about forgiveness and second chances and things like that. So, but it's a slightly strained relationship too, because of the history, because they were once, I don't want to say enemies, but pretty darn close. So it's a really interesting relationship to write, because they're not buddy. They're not, you know, Hickam and Lee or something like that. They're very different, but they can be very useful to each other in times of need, which is important, I think.
It'll be cool to see it play out this season for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I feel like for me, whenever I see like those two on screen, I'm always intrigued of like, what's going to happen? What's this conversation? How is it going to go? So I feel like a lot of Hearties are, you know, in that same boat too, of like, whenever those two are on screen, they're like, what's going to happen here? What are they going to say?
Yeah.
So I love that there's going to be like more scenes with both of them.
Yeah, you never know if it's
But
going to go
also,
south, like
yeah,
work out, or
Right.
good or bad, or
Yeah.
you never know with those two.
right.
Exactly.
You got Bill, the classic curmudgeon, and Henry is just the understated man on a path to redemption, and I think they're just great to write for. I love, those two in any scene are great, but the two of them together, there's something special there.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
And also in that first episode, there was a lot of bromance going on, like with Pastor Joseph and also Lee, hiring different people, counting on the good Lord to provide. So the Hearties missed seeing like Lee Sawmill last year, and we remember that you were hired, in part for the show because you specialized in lumber lingo. So in the writer's room, like how did this like emphasis like on the sawmill like come back?
I think the other writers are probably pretty tired of me pushing for it, because I always like to go back to the sawmill, mainly because of what you just mentioned. That's my old career in another life, and I kind of like to go back there every once in a while. But I think the sawmill really played into the idea of a reset for the town, and that all of this other industry was coming in and sort of throwing its weight around, and then we orchestrated it so that goes away, and you're left with this. There's something very wholesome and small town about a sawmill, and the number of people that it employs, and I really like seeing Lee at the helm. He's just fun to watch. So I think it's given us more meaningful story for Lee, because he and his business become pretty central to one of the bigger stories. And it just gives him something else to do. It's just a different flavor. I like what's happening with Joseph and Lee, and that will play into a bigger story later. So I think it ticked a lot of boxes, and it's good to have it more front and center for sure.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And also something that we saw in the first episode is like 3 of the single ladies are moving in together, like Faith and Fiona and May. So Lisa from Wisconsin, like she noticed that last night, the notion of a triangle was like nipped in the bud. It's because we heard May say that she and Nathan were like just friends, like nothing's happening there. But clearly, with Faith, like something was going on. So what did the writers like want to see in those storylines?
I think that Nathan and Faith are an interesting pair. And I think to a lot of people, maybe on paper, they look like, oh, they could be a good couple together. I mean, they share a lot in common, and when they talk, you can kind of feel that chemistry. But they've also both been through a lot. They've, Faith with Carson and all that, and Nathan, of course, a few seasons ago, pronouncing his love for somebody and it wasn't returned. So they're both in really interesting positions right now. And I think what we're trying to do is set up a story that will play out for Faith and Nathan across the season. It's sort of a test to see if there is anything between them, because I think they both, not just Faith, I think they both felt something. It's whether or not it'll actually work out, because I think both of them are thinking, is am I destined for love? Is that in the cards for me? Did I miss my chance? And I think all I can say is stay tuned and see what happens. But we certainly put them, we're setting up a little sandpaper to begin with Faith. She's not mad at him, but there's just something there because of the way she was feeling at the end of the previous season. And I think it plays out in a really interesting way for both of them, and really funny at times and really heartfelt at other times. But it's a good little run.
So we were picking up on a little, I think Hearties were a little confused last night that we're like, were we crazy? Were we picking up on the fact that something definitely seems to have happened off camera between the seasons? And I think that's what we were picking up on. And if so, and we actually already got a sneak peek this morning of something coming next week, but we will see more and we will unpack more of what happened, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah.
In later episodes, you learn what actually happened over the break and how maybe that would explain Faith's looks and reactions in this episode. And then it puts them in these really interesting situations together where they're thrust together and they need to, figure this out, whether they're going to be friends, whether they're going to be not friends or more, or whatever. So I think they're a really good pair. They have good chemistry, and so the question that remains to be answered is, where will they go from here? So
Right.
that unfolds over the whole season.
Will it unpack any more of what really happened with May, or did we really sort of see that
Yes.
story last season?
A little bit.
Okay.
There's some kind of reference to that, so it's explained. We're always sort of tap dancing around the break in the show because we end in the fall, so we've got that time where people are not just sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting for the show to come back. They're actually, the characters continue to live, and so what do we do with them? So we'll get a bit more into that. Definitely not the triangle that some people I think maybe were expecting, but really,
I think the May Sue fans were, and I think a lot of us were like, oh wow, so she's just like, oh, he's a great friend, I enjoy being his friend.
Right.
So I think a lot of us were like, whoa, was that it? What's happening?
What happened?
And that evolved. Like, it definitely wasn't like that when we first wrote it, which is probably the case for most of the things you actually see on the screen. So it evolved over many challenging, difficult conversations with all the stakeholders involved here, also fan feedback. So we hope we've landed in an interesting place, and I can assure you that May will be busy enough with her own interesting story this year. So
We love every single character, so good to hear that all of them have good storylines coming.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me a little bit to my next question. Because a lot of shows now have those long breaks between seasons, not just ours, a lot of, this year, a little unexpectedly longer than we thought. Can you talk a little bit when you first sit down, like for a season premiere, and what that kind of looks like? Because I imagine you have to kind of go, how much do we need to catch the audience up? How much do we need to set the stage for the season? That kind of thing.
Right.
Maybe just like specific what it looks like when you're first talking about a premiere.
It's a lot of the credit can be given to the network and post-production. They put together those previously ons to get everyone caught up, and we do a long one for the first episode of the year, because not just for you the fans, but even for us, it's been forever since we worked on that show, on that season, the season you're watching now. And then we have the usual journaling scene that we'll open a season with, to try to explain and bring everybody back up to speed on where they are and how they're feeling and where each storyline is. So that definitely helps. This year was a really tough one. It was longer, but I hope everyone is going to be excited. The good thing about it, there is a positive to it, is that we're writing and actually shooting season 11 right now, and it's kind of nice to be able to kind of tap into how everyone's feeling about this early on, and the timing is quite good right now. So as you're watching first episode, second episode, we're getting this feedback, which we're shooting the first episode, second episode of the next, so we can kind of adjust as we go, as we get this feedback. So the timing's been good.
And then maybe if you can share, you've shared over the years, and if Hearties have watched before, they may have heard, but a little bit about how you plan the whole arc for the season, what that looks like in the writer's room, how far ahead you kind of plan, and what that process looks like for you.
the first few weeks of the room, we usually just talk about the whole season, and ultimately it gets down to, okay, where do we want to land these bigger stories? What are the stories, and where do we want to finish them in episode 12 in our case? So we'll do that. We'll do that planning, and then once we come up with these, we call them well, they're pillar beats, I guess you could call them, where like the pillar of a tent or something, they hold it up. So these pillar beats throughout the various episodes that support the big story. So if we're going to land it with these two finally kiss, or that he's near death on the edge of a cliff, or whatever it is, we need something to set those up through all the episodes. So we try to do that, and then we start writing episodes in order. The tricky part is that we get notes from everyone, all sorts of, interested parties, whether it's the network or production or actors or whatever. So it's always changing. And that's the tricky part, is maintaining that, all those little important beats that set up the final resting place for the movie, or for the episode. So that can be tricky. And that's what's great about having a bigger staff, not a bigger staff, but a writer's room, that instead of having a couple people thinking about that, you have 6 people that are keeping that in their heads, and someone could say, oh no, we have to adjust episode 3, or this landing spot won't work. So it's tricky, and we have big spreadsheets and cards and crazy stuff to keep us cognizant of that, because it's easy to forget all those little details. And I think the seasons that have worked the best are when that has been done the best, because then it's not just that you're getting a flow through an episode, you're getting kind of a flow through a whole season. Really hard to do, but that's always the goal. Yeah.
So kind of along those same lines, you have been with the show since season 2, and you've worked with different showrunners over that time. Reggie Ma from Edmonton, Canada, wonders how the writing process changes with changes in the showrunners.
Evan, hi to Edmonton. Love Edmonton. Yeah, we've had, I don't know how many showrunners we've had now. Probably 6 or 8. Is that how many?
Wow.
Oh, I don't know. No, 1, 2, 3, 4,
A lot.
6 maybe. Anyway, a lot. And what I like about a new showrunner is that they always bring a fresh take on the show. That there's one thing, I've been here since season 2, and at times you can get into a bit of a trench and think like this is how it has to be, and this is the way the show works. And it's nice to have the fresh ideas come in. A showrunner gets hired based on their experience and their vision for the show. When they interview, it's sort of, have they worked in the business enough to understand how everything works, and are they able to kind of manage not only the writers but a big chunk of production, but then their vision. What are you going to do in season 10? What's your big, what is it going to look like? And that's how you sell yourself to the people that make the decision of hiring. And so it's great to have all these fresh ideas come into the show. And I think what our role, those of us that have been around for a while, is our role is to sort of find the balance, like so that the changes aren't so abrupt that they feel like they're not the show anymore, but they also they're new and fresh, but they feel true to the roots of the show. And the showrunners that we've had have always been really good about that, kind of leaning on us for our experience on the show. A lot of the times when a new showrunner comes in, everyone gets let go, and I've been fortunate, as has Beth, who's been here a while, and Allie's been here for 4 seasons now. So it's good. It's hard because you lose a friend. We're all friends in the room, and it's hard. But so when they make the change, it's really tricky. But we welcome the new person, and they've got the job for the reason, and we try to support them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's nice for Hearties to know that that's a rare thing, that the rest of the staff stays on. That just says a lot about you guys and how well you work together.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. It's a great show to work for, and you know, I think now that we're getting into 11 seasons, 12 seasons, you need some people that have been around now more than ever, because it's really easy to, I mean, imagine being a new person to the show, a new showrunner or even writer, or even a new fan. I mean, to cover all of those episodes,
Right. Catch up about, learn all that history all at once
Yeah.
before you start writing.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's incredible. So it's yeah, we hope this team stays together for a while, and we hope the strike ends, and those that we lost to the strike can come back soon and get back to normal. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we have a question from one of your biggest fans, Donna Cohen from Windsor, Connecticut. She is asking, what was the hardest scene for you to write in your tenure at When Calls the Heart? And also, what was the hardest season for the writing team?
The hardest season for the writing team? To see Donna, I love Donna. She has the toughest question. I think that season 5 was probably across the board. It was just, we don't on this show, we don't deal with, since the very beginning of the show, we haven't dealt with death a whole lot. And in that season, we had to deal with one of the most important characters dying, and that was really hard for, and I wrote some of the back half episodes of that season, and I can remember, you know, not tooting my own horn. It wasn't my writing, it was just the idea that he was going. So I'd find myself writing and like having a tear in my eye, because it was just really hard to make that shift and imagine the show without him. I think we've done a good job of moving on and introducing new characters and everything, but that was really hard. That was a tricky one to get through, and I think the other writers would agree that have been around. That was really tricky, but we got through it, and bigger things ahead, and I think it worked out. I think every time we talk about maybe going down that road again with like dealing with death, it's really hard. It's on this show, it's really, like, I even find when I write a scene about little Jack and he talks about his dad, it's just like, it tears me up. It's a soft spot for me. So those are hard to write, but also really nice to write, because they mean something. They mean a lot. So yeah, I think season 5, and then I'm a sucker for kid scenes too. Any kid that's having trouble, I always have those are always extra tricky for me. Yeah.
Already last night, it felt like we're going to see more of the kids this season. I mean, they bring so much life. It was so fun to see a lot of them them back on.
Well, there's some great stuff with kids coming. I don't know what else I can say. Maybe some surprises. Maybe some surprises that you wouldn't expect with the kids.
We'll take them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone will be on social media about one of the surprises for sure.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of surprises, Lucas surprised everyone in this episode with that community dinner. Everything looked amazing. But then for next week's episode, Lucas is going to be the one with the surprise when Julie and Agatha are coming to town. I was really surprised when I saw the sneak peek, and also we hear that Elizabeth's dad may be trying to like offer Lucas a job. So we need to know, where are you guys like going with this?
Well, I was so excited that we could get Aunt Agatha again, because she was always my favorite. That was
awesome.
She's great.
That was my first season, and so it was kind of like she was one of the cool characters that we really enjoyed writing. She wasn't in it very much in season 2, but it was enough that like the scenes were so good that she was in. So we got her, and I think what it is, I can say this much: it's a test. It's a kind of not the first maybe, but one of many tests for Elizabeth and Lucas. I don't think what her dad is trying to orchestrate is anything sinister. I think it's more that he misses his daughter, as do, as does their sister and Aunt Agatha and everyone else. They miss her and they miss their grandson and they want them to be closer. And I can relate to that very much, having little kids of my own. Like, that's just what grandparents want. And I think that's what he's out to do. But it does present a choice and a test for them, and how do they overcome it together and how do they handle it. And Agatha, as you could probably imagine, is someone that doesn't mince words. She's probably gonna put him through the paces and make sure he's at the snuff. So that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, that's the idea behind that, is just to give them a little challenge together and see how they do.
I feel like did Elizabeth bring her back to get back at him when his mom came to town and put her through the paces?
Right.
Like, let's bring Agatha to town. And bring
Oh, that's true. We should have put something like that in there, because we certainly did that to her. Well, I didn't do that to her, but that's what happened to her. So
right, yeah.
there's a little,
Both characters are very like, they will tell you like it is, and
it's a lot like that. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
very much so. Yeah.
Well, one thing we've learned as we've chatted with the writers over the years is your ability to adapt. And my goodness, this show has had big moments over the course of 10 seasons where we've had to adapt, even on a daily basis, I'm sure, for you all, with things like weather and changing schedules and things like that. In addition to the big things we've dealt with, just like in season 5 and things like that. So going into season 11, just what else do we expect? Another hurdle with the strike coming about. Can you share a little bit with how your team is kind of rallying and how you're coming together for season 11?
Yeah, I can speak, from the writer's room perspective, and then, what the production team has gone through. For us, I mean, the strike, it's a noble cause, and we're glad that they're doing it, and we support them. We sort of, I think people knew it was coming, and so this year we started a bit early, and we started in February actually, and started to write, and we had 3 Canadians, and we had 3 WGA American writers, and they all had to stop when the strike started. So, but we worked as hard as we could to get as many scripts finished as we could before we lost them. And it's been a big loss. It's that's half your staff is gone, and that's even before we get into production, where production is when the scripts really get scrutinized and the directors get their hands on them and they have thoughts, and the whole production team, the actors start reading, so we get their feedback. So we're doing the best we can, and we're very thankful to production for being supportive of us, and Hallmark as well. Hallmark has been really supportive, as we're doing the best we can under really tough conditions. As for production, I mean, they're amazing. Whether it's, we almost had to reorganize all of the shooting because of the SAG strike and everything else, and they can just pivot on a dime. They just know how to get things done. And then you go back to COVID, and that was really hard on them, and they made it through that. So this, like I said, this is a great show to work for. Good people that get things done, and it's a pretty warm environment where we all work together and try to solve problems and hopefully put the best product on the screen that we possibly can. It's a huge process. I mean, we started in February. There'll be people working on this season 11 that we're doing right now. They'll be working well into the new year. So it just goes on and on. Lots of people to credit for that. So yeah, I can't say enough about this group and how supportive and innovative they can be.
Well, and so many moving parts there. So it's good. It's really, really good to hear that the support's coming from every direction. That's really great, because And it probably does it feel a little bit like a day at a time kind of thing, or?
It does, just
yeah.
because we don't know what's going to happen. And
Right.
but Hallmark has been really supportive of us and working closely with us, and making sure that we keep the train on the tracks until further notice. And so far we really like what we're doing in season 11. I won't get into that. I know
Awesome.
we're a long ways away, but we're very excited about what's happening for sure.
We're grateful for the hardworking crew and the cast and everybody involved, because like Jeanette said, so many moving parts. And so next Sunday is a really special episode because it's in celebration of the 100th episode. It's the 100th episode of which a huge number of those you wrote, and you got to write this episode. So how do you approach writing such an important episode in One Calls a Heart history, let's say that, and tell us, what it meant to you to get to write this one?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest. When I wrote it, I didn't know that that's what it was going to be. And I didn't. I think the trouble they were having is they're like, what is the 100th episode?
Yeah, we did the same thing.
Yeah.
We've had movies, we've had episodes that were put together in season 2 and as packaged as movies, and who knows. So it somehow landed on that episode, which I'm really grateful for. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I didn't have any of the pressure of being, I really have to knock this one out of the park because this is the movie. I just wrote it like a normal. I think it's a good episode. I had fun writing it. I think lots of cool stuff happens. I think they did a great job shooting it. So hopefully everyone loves it, because that's a big, to get to 100, especially when you only have orders of 10 to 12 episodes, that's huge. So we're all very excited.
Yeah, I think about it and it's like, wow, 100 episodes. That's such an achievement, and not many shows have the privilege of getting to 100 episodes. And just as to us being grateful, for the show and the impact, and that it's been impacting lives, for 100 episodes. So that's really cool.
Yeah. We really appreciate everyone keeping us going. And what you do really, it's this kind of thing that keeps everybody really engaged and really supportive of the show. And what keeps us going is that it does affect people's lives. I've had lots of people just say, I'm going through this or that, and this is my place to escape a little bit in the day and put a smile on my face or have a little cry or whatever. And it's just, it fills your cups, as they say. It makes you feel good.
Derek, we've loved having this conversation with you, and thank you so much for letting us have a sneak peek into the writer's room and everything that goes into making each episode. So it's been great.
Well, thank you. And anytime, love talking to you. And hopefully, I think you're having more writers in here as we move forward. So that should be lots of fun. But thank you again for what you do, for keeping us alive on the air. What do you call it? Is this a podcast? Is this a podcast, YouTube show? What do you guys call this?
We always call it a chat. We're a little afraid of the word podcast.
Yeah.
We just call it a chat. It's way more cash.
But it's so great that you do this, and thank you. I hope it keeps on going and going, and anything we can do to help you, we're here. Okay.
And Hearties, we love being here with you too for Heart to Hearties, and we are grateful for all the ways that you are spreading the word about the show. So come back next week. I love saying that. Come back next week to tweet with us on Showrunner using the hashtag Hearties. So the show continues. So tune in Sunday, 9, 8 Central on the Hallmark channel. So to see the next episode.